guys today about an introduction to behavior as communication. I'm going to let Kevin have the first go with just some introductions.
Sure. So my name is Kevin Schlickenmeyer. I'm the founder of a program called Tact. We're located out of Acton, Massachusetts, and we provide services in home, clinic, and community settings. And it's always amazing to get in the same room or virtual room as parents because, that's really how we got our program started is by supporting parents directly. 13 years ago when I was a teacher, I spent a lot of time in the community with students, making sure that they would still access, all the same things that all other kids their age were accessing. And so that was kind of our entry point. So it's nice to, share the next 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour with you guys. And now, Serena, you're in charge of this, but I'm okay with people if they want to use their hand raise or something like that and ask questions. The more
Yeah,
parents
I think the hand raise feature or the chat, and then we will also have time for people to unmute and ask questions at the end.
that would certainly help us. The more that we get some participation, the better. Of course, if you don't want to or don't feel comfortable, that's fine. And then if you do want to go on, you click the video so we can see you. That would be amazing. I don't see very many people choosing that option. That's okay. But if you're willing to give that, thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. So, like I said, I'm going to let Serena kind of run the show here. She's the expert on this topic, so I'm going to let her get started on the presentation. But we would love it if you guys raise your hand or ask questions, and it should be a fun 45 minutes to an hour. So, with that, Serena, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. And as Kevin said, we work for a program called Tact, and I'm the clinical director over there. So I am a board certified behavior analyst, as is Kevin, and we're both licensed in the state of Massachusetts. So that's kind of the lens we're coming from. So just some kind of basic stuff before we get started. This presentation is really meant as education, not consultation. We're going to be asking you to think about some hypothetical examples, maybe some examples regarding your child or a child you know. Again, that's just for education purposes. Given that we don't have any kind of therapeutic or clinical relationship with any of your individual children, we can't provide direct consult or recommendations. So this is just to familiarize you guys with some of the concepts. But if you have questions, please write them down. Sorry, Charlene, did you want to jump in? Oh, no. If you do have questions, please, like Kevin said, write them down in the chat, raise your hand, or we can discuss them at the end. I did also just want to make a language note throughout the presentation. I might say autistic individual or individual with autism. I know there's different preferences among the community related to person first or diagnosis first language. Really, my decision is just going to be grammatical. It's not a judgment call. We always want to respect the choice of every individual of how they like to be referred to. So just a basic agenda of what we're going to be discussing this evening. We're going to start off by talking about how behavior serves a function, introduce you guys to a term in ABA that we use when talking about language, which is a mand. And then we'll have some group activity where I'll be asking you guys some questions to kind of interpret what your child might be saying in different scenarios. And then we'll talk about the OWR framework. So just to get us started, why even learn about behavior? Behavior is everything we do and say as individuals. It is talking, walking, speaking, breathing, playing, everything we do and say. And you have the power to change behavior. As individuals, we can all change our behavior, but we're also part of the social environment of many other individuals. And that social environment actually changes their behaviors as well. Thinking about it really kind of simply, if you go out to dinner with some of your really close friends, you behave one way. If you're in a business meeting, you behave a different way. And if you're sitting across the table from your child, you behave a third way. They're all you, but your behavior is attuned to the environment you're in. So by being part of that environment, you actually have the ability to change behavior. And it's not easy. Changing behavior is really difficult. We're coming up on the end of the year, so we're coming up on New Year's resolutions. If any of you have made a past New Year's resolution that you did not necessarily stick to, you know how hard it is to change your own behavior, and it's just as hard to change the behavior of another individual. It's habit forming, it takes time, it takes practice and energy. So again, just some examples of behavior: crawling, running, drinking, dancing. These are all things we do. And some behaviors you want to encourage and do more of. Again, with that New Year's resolution, some of us might be thinking about healthy eating or exercise behaviors we want to do more of. And there may be behaviors we want to see less of, like maybe your New Year's resolution is going to be to spend a little less time scrolling on your phone, right? We all have things we want to change. So, some basic assumptions about behavior in general. There are two types of behaviors that we as humans do. There's unlearned and learned behaviors. Unlearned behavior refers to things that are part of our biology that we do without even thinking or noticing. So things like breathing could be considered a behavior that is unlearned, it's natural. The salivation response when you smell something really good cooking, these are unlearned behaviors that just happen. Learned behaviors refer to things that we as humans learn to do as a result of our environment. So if you think back to if you have a child when they were really, really young and maybe they were cooing and you're cooing back at that baby, you're teaching them and they're learning that vocalization behavior maybe, or learning to play peekaboo and imitate based on their social environment. So there's lots of behaviors we learn. There are also lots of behaviors that our body just knows how to do. Behavior serves a function. This is what we're going to talk a lot about tonight. But the idea is what we do and say relates to what we need, what we want. It serves a purpose for us as an individual. And it's a product of the environment. Again, the environment is going to be really key in understanding why our children, ourselves, do what we do. So, thinking a little bit more deeply about this idea that behavior serves a function. When someone is engaging in a behavior, they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it in relation to something that they want or need in the environment. So that behavior is purposeful, it's reasonable. Now, sometimes that function may not be being expressed in the best way, but it's all very necessary for that individual to access things that they want or need. The reason behaviors occurs can be to either get something good, something they want, or to get rid of something that they do not want, something that might be considered aversive to that individual. And the reasons behaviors occur can come from other people, or it can be directly related to that individual's body. So when we think about human behavior, there are 4 primary functions with lots of examples and subcategories. The first function of behavior is attention. So as humans, we're social, right? I already referred a little bit to that social environment. So a lot of what we do or say is directly related to a desire for connection or attention from another individual. The next function is sensory. And this is the idea that as humans, there are things that make us physically feel good that we seek out. And we'll get to some examples of these to help them with a little bit. But some examples that you might relate to for sensory is if you're someone who cracks your knuckles, right? That's something that just feels good. It kind of scratches that itch in your body. It's not related to how someone else responds to it necessarily. It just feels good. Similarly, scratching a bug bite. You're doing it for a sensation, for a feeling in your own body. The third function is tangible. Tangible refers to things that you can feel, touch, taste, etc. So as humans, we do things to access tangible physical things in our environment. So maybe you are walking into the kitchen while you're listening to me to go get a snack. That's a tangible thing that you're seeking out. And the fourth function is escape or avoidance. As humans, we like to get away from things that we do not like, that do not feel good. So escape is that idea that we're trying to get out of a situation that we find aversive. So I'm going to go into some examples of all 4 of these. So when thinking about attention, I have kind of a broken down example of how a child might demonstrate a behavior that serves this function. So in this example, when Tommy's mom is on the phone, Tommy begins to whine. When he whines, Tommy's mom mutes the phone. She comes over and she provides him with a few minutes of comforting attention. Now, every time she tries to make a phone call, Tommy begins to whine. Now, the reason Tommy could be whining in this example is in order to access that comforting attention he's getting from mom. So he's seeing her attention get diverted and he's engaging in a behavior that serves the purpose of drawing her attention back to him.
Can we pause for 1 second, Serena?
Yeah,
It might be kind of tough because people are feeling very shy tonight, but I'm going to beg one more time for a few people to unmute if they can, if they're comfortable. And I just want to get a general sense of if people are following and agree with the sentiment and if they kind of understand where we're going with this. Does anybody want to kind of indicate if they generally understand what we're getting at, or if they're in agreement, or if there's anybody who feels very strongly differently about this kind of framework? I just want to see if we can get some little part of. Okay, there we go. We got the thumbs up from one person. And I'm just going to be
perfect.
nice right now by not being too directive. But if
Got
you,
a positive I agree in the chat.
there we go.
Awesome. So
Awesome. Okay,
making
so we're
sense so
seeing
far.
some. Sorry to be a geek, but we're seeing some behavior out of our audience. So I know they're there. All right, we can move on.
Awesome.
Generally, people are on board.
Now that we paused, my screen is not being responsive. Oh, there we go. Jumped way ahead. All right. Sorry about that. So the next function is sensory. This is the one that can be a little tricky because it's a feeling in that individual's body. So we can't necessarily judge it for someone else. But as an example, let's say Jamie just got a new fuzzy sweater. And when she wears it, she often rubs the sleeve over her nose. So she's feeling that fuzzy sensation go back and forth across her nose. When she rubs the sleeve over her nose, it's soft and it's warm, and maybe that feels good in Jamie's body. So her teachers notice that Jamie often does this during outdoor recess, especially when she's not playing with anything else. So in this example, we might guess that the reason Jamie's engaging in this behavior is because she's getting some good sensory input. Something's feeling really good when she's rubbing that soft sleeve across her nose, especially when she's not getting other input, right? She's not playing with other toys or other people. The example for tangible that I have here, and remember, tangible just means like physical, you can touch it, you can feel it, see it, is Arjun is playing with toy cars on a ramp. One car rolls down the ramp and under the couch. Arjun begins to take his dad's arm and pull him over towards the couch. His dad follows Arjun, leans down and sees the car and retrieves it. So dad hands the car back to Arjun. Here we can see a tangible item that Arjun was playing with that he wanted went missing or out of reach. So he sought out someone else. He got help from dad by pulling dad over. So that pulling and guiding dad over towards him might serve the function of accessing things that are unavailable to Arjun when he's on his own. And the fourth function, like I mentioned, is escape or avoidance. And this is just getting out of stuff that you don't want to do. And in this example, we have Olivia's mom wants her to try new foods. So she places one new food item on Olivia's plate for dinner every day. Each time a new vegetable is on Olivia's plate, Olivia pushes the plate away. So she's physically showing, get that away from me. I want to escape it. Eventually, when Olivia's pushing that plate away, mom takes the plate, removes the vegetable, so Olivia will eat her dinner. In this example, Olivia's pushing that food away serves the purpose of getting that non-preferred vegetable off her plate and away from her. So she's able to escape the expectation of trying that new food. So again, if we can get a thumbs up or maybe a comment in the chat if these are all making sense, because I know that's a lot of four whole functions that I just dropped at you guys. Awesome, I got a thumbs up. I got a couple thumbs up, so assuming it's making sense so far. So now we're going to do a little bit of a group activity. Again, this is going to ask that you guys either unmute to talk or you can drop answers in the chat. But we're going to try and name the function of some behaviors. So based on the scenario, I'm going to ask you guys to take a guess of what you think the function is. So we're going to start with number 1. When Santiago's brother scores a goal, Santiago runs up, grabs his brother's arm, and gives him numerous high fives. What might Santiago be seeking in that moment? What might he want? And as a reminder, our options are attention, sensory, tangible, and escape. Do we have someone brave who wants to take the first guess? Either
This is the moment where we figure out if we're going to get people going here.
unmute or in the chat.
Ailman.
Attention.
Why do you think attention?
Because it grabbed her arm, so it's trying to like take him to
Mm-hmm.
by grabbing the
Yeah,
arms, it shows the tension.
exactly right. He's getting that interaction, the high fives. His brother's probably looking at him, smiling. They get to celebrate that goal together. So this was meant to be an example for attention because he's getting that social connection or interaction from his brother. Perfect. So now our second example, we have Mom asks Jenna to clean up the playroom. Jenna then says she needs to go to the bathroom. After that, she says her stomach hurts. After that, she says she has a headache. What might Jenna be seeking in this moment?
Charlene, wait it out. We'll see if we can get some other participation quick. And if you're most comfortable, you can type it in the chat too.
See if I have any responses in the chat.
People
All right, I got a guess in the
There
chat,
we go. Okay.
and their guess was escape. I got a second escape, and that is what this example was getting at, right? So the expectation, the instruction was given to clean up the playroom. And what we're seeing is Jenna's engaging in numerous responses to do lots of other things other than clean up the playroom, which I don't know, Jenna, it's a hypothetical example, but likely isn't the most preferred activity. Our third example, we have while taking a bath, Mallory likes to run her palms over the top of the water. So she's skimming her palms back and forth across the bath water. What might that behavior be doing for her? Awesome. I got a bunch of responses in the chat, and you guys were all on it with sensory, right? That's a behavior that's not seeking something from someone else. It just might feel good. And finally, we have Raj.
Sorry to interrupt, Serena, but somebody said something really interesting to me on like the self-soothing part, and this is probably a little too far dense, but there is when you think about like sensory, right? I think like I'm a big music guy, and so putting my music on in the car, there might be some social contingencies, like I want to tell someone about this awesome song later or something, which usually doesn't work because I have a very eclectic taste in music. But in any case, the music to me is like a positive reinforcer, but it's sensory, right? It's giving something to me. But somebody said almost self-soothing, and I like the idea of that because it's yes, the water provides some sort of stimulation, but then you also use the argument of, well, let's say you have an itch, right? So it's almost like the sensory stuff can work one of both ways. You may engage in sensory seeking to gain something or sensory seeking to eliminate something. So that framework still works even when we're in sensory land. So Jody Grant had said self-soothing, and I know you mentioned that earlier, so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's a great response. And then our last example, we have Raj is standing in the kitchen staring into the open refrigerator door. What might Raj be looking for? All right. Food. Perfect. And what function would that kind of fall under? Do we think?
Attention, sensory, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting some. So interesting. We have a little bit of disagreement here, which I think is good. So tangible and also sensory, right? So when I thought of this example, my initial thought would be tangible because he's maybe looking for a snack, maybe hoping a better snack might appear if, the healthy version of you went to the grocery store. Maybe you can relate to that. But food is an interesting example where it is a tangible item, right? It's something that you can touch or taste, but eating is a behavior that may give us also some sensory input, right? The feeling of being full. So that is a little bit of a tricky one. It kind of skates the line there. So I love that disagreement in the chat. So it seems like overall we're feeling okay about kind of guesstimating what behavior might be seeking or what the function of behaviors might be given some hypothetical examples, which I love. All right, so now we're going to start talking a little bit more deeply about communication now that we have this framework of why we might do what we do. So in this whole overarching span of communication, I really want to hone in on this term demand, which is the technical term we use in ABA to talk about requesting. If it helps, it comes from the word demand. So demand, it means that you're seeking or requesting something. So a demand is a request for something, an item, an activity, information, or cessation, stopping, removal, that is desired by the individual who is communicating. So you demand for your own wants or needs. Some examples of demands. I want juice, right? Pretty clear. I am saying that there is something that I want. And that's really a demand for a tangible juice. Can I have a break? That's an example of a demand for cessation or the termination or end of something. So maybe I'm working really hard at my homework and I say, I want a break. I want to terminate homework for a little while. Look is also an example of a demand. That one's a little bit tricky, but the idea there is that I'm trying to draw your attention. So I'm demanding your attention onto whatever I want to show you. And then what time is it? Oftentimes questions are considered demands for information. It's a request for information that I don't have, that I think you, the listener, the person I'm talking to, does have. So there's lots of different ways that individuals with autism or other communication deficits may demand. One example is spoken word, right? We're currently using that form of communication, and that's how I often communicate my wants and needs. Other individuals may use sign language to communicate if they want or need something. And other individuals might use alternative forms of communication, like a picture exchange system or a speech generating device. There's lots of other examples. These are just a few common examples of how our language able individuals might be engaging in demands. But how do early language learners, those who don't yet have a well-developed repertoire of speech or a large vocabulary, demand or request for things that they want? And when we think about those early language learners, oftentimes what they're using is what we call an indicating response. So they might not have the words to say, I want juice, but their behavior is going to tell you they want juice. Examples of what those responses might look like, it might be reaching towards something, right? You're in the fridge, the door's open, the orange juice is on the door, and your child's up there doing one of these. They don't have to use words to tell you what they want. Other times you might see students or children grabbing items, looking intensely towards items, right? They do one of these and tell you with their whole face that they want something, even if they don't say it. Or you might see some behaviors like whining, hitting, maybe dropping to the floor, making a pouty face. All of these different behaviors can be a way for a child who doesn't yet have all of the language to tell you what they want in that moment. So our jobs as the people supporting some early language learners is to be the detective. Step one is always going to be learning that individual child's indicating responses. Every kid uses different tools, and many kids have lots and lots of different tools to show you with their behavior what they want, even if they're not yet using language or not yet using a wide range of language to tell you. And then scan the environment to help you interpret indicating responses, right? This can sometimes be the challenging part if you're in a setting where there's lots of things your child might want, and you have to look at them, get like, hey, you're showing me there's something that you want or need in this moment. And I'm going to look at you and I'm going to look through the environment and kind of be the detective to determine how can I interpret this correctly to know what you want or need in this moment. Can I get a quick like thumbs up or sounds good in the chat if this is making sense? Or if we have any questions? I see a thumbs up. Awesome. Then I am going to plow ahead, but if you guys have questions, feel free again to drop them in the chat. So bringing it back to something we talked about earlier, and we're going to use indicating responses in this example, behavior is a product of the environment. So consider the following example. Michelle is building a house out of Lincoln logs. She goes to put the roof on, but she can't get it to fit right and ends up knocking down her whole tower. Michelle throws the roof across the room and screams. Michelle's mom comes over and rebuilds the house for her. If any of you have little ones at home or children who have some language delays or challenges with language, this might sound similar. If you're coming in, helping solve the problem. Now, when we think about this, there's an environmental cause. There's something in Michelle's environment that's causing this behavior. After Michelle threw the roof and screamed, her mom came over and she fixed the house for her. We can kind of be the detective here, right? Child throws the roof. We notice, oh my gosh, this whole tower has fallen down. Likely there's some frustration going on here because the roof didn't go on right. So if we look at that environmental cause, we can start to determine how do we help Michelle be better responsive, have more skills to respond to these frustrating moments in the future. Option A, teach her to put the roof on, right? Help Michelle gain some play skills. I don't know how many of you play with Lincoln logs. This might be like old school, but that's what I had in my childhood. But they can be a little tricky. You got to fit the pieces in just right. So maybe Michelle just needs some support in understanding how to use the tools. Another option is teaching Michelle how to recruit attention from mom and ask when she needs help, whether that's tapping, whether that's using her voice, whether that's bringing Michelle's mom a piece so she knows what she needs help with, right? She could recruit mom's attention in a way that looks a little different and is maybe a little bit more appropriate than screaming and throwing once she has those skills. And the third option is once those skills are developed, we can work with mom and Michelle on understanding screaming and throwing things is not the best way to communicate. It won't get me what I want in the long run. So instead, help Michelle access these other skills as she develops them, right? Help her use other communication responses. So you can see that comes first. First, we use the more appropriate communication responses, and then we learn how to bias towards those, use those responses more and more, and use the less appropriate communication responses less and less once we have that alternative. The advantage of seeing this through the lens of the environment and understanding that the tower falling down is the cause of this behavior is it helps us understand that Michelle just needs to learn some new skills. She might need a little bit of support with her play and communication skills. And it teaches us how to help her learn what to do to get what she wants instead of screaming and throwing things. To figure out the function of the behavior, we look at the environment, right? You guys practice that. When the tower fell down, the mom in this example looked around, scanned the environment, and was able to determine this is probably what's causing this frustration. And Michelle's telling me that she needs help with these toys through her behavior, through those indicating responses. When we can change the environment, we can change behavior. So mom fixed the tower, Michelle felt much better, calmed down. That environment has changed. Similarly, teaching Michelle how to use the toys will change the environment long term. It's important to note that feelings like anger and frustration exist. In this example, Michelle was likely feeling very frustrated. But if we solely attribute behavior to those feelings, it doesn't let us help, right? If we say Michelle screams because she's frustrated and we don't look at the source of that frustration, there's nowhere for us to go because everyone gets frustrated, right? I get frustrated, you get frustrated. It's valid to have those feelings. What we want to do is look at the environmental cause and how can we help Michelle either be less frustrated or have the skills to cope when she feels frustrated. Because whether it's Lincoln Logs or homework or a college interview, we're all going to have moments of frustration, anger, sadness, all of these feelings. So the goal of looking at the environment is looking at how do we help that student or that child gain the skills to cope better when things don't always go our way.
And I really like that, the behaviorism people, I guess you would say. We sometimes get a little flack because it almost sounds like we're saying feelings don't matter and all this stuff. Well, that's absolutely not what we're saying. What we're saying is that when behavior serves a purpose, understanding that purpose kind of puts us through the lens of the person who's struggling with something, and it gives us a skill-based way we can help them. And just want to clarify again, even though you said it, Serena, we're not saying feelings don't matter. They absolutely matter, and we care. And so what we want to do is help people feel better by focusing on what are some things we can teach to alleviate some of that struggle a little bit so that, if we're talking young kids or, whatever, we want to make sure that those individuals have skills to navigate their environments successfully and without having those kind of struggles the best we can. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin.
For sure.
The other thing to highlight here is, like I said earlier, all behavior is communication. Different forms of behavior say what your child cannot say in the moment. And it's important to acknowledge a child may not be able to say something with words or language in the moment, either because they're still learning those skills, maybe they're developing some speech skills or they're learning how to navigate an alternative method of speaking, or due to heightened feelings in that moment. So, like Kevin said, we all have feelings. Some of us have very big feelings sometimes. And all of us, I think, can relate to a moment where your emotions have been so heightened, you have not been able to communicate at your best. I don't know everyone's situation, but if you've ever been in a fight with a partner, or if you think back to yourself as a teenager in a fight with a family member, right? We've all had those moments where we're really heightened and we look back and we're like, man, I did not communicate the best I could have. I didn't access my language to the best of my ability. That happens to everyone. So sometimes behavior is being used not because a child literally does not have the words, but because in that moment, communication through sign language or spoken word or a picture exchange system or whatever it is too much work and they're too emotional in that moment to do it. So again, the goal of helping them regulate and helping them have the tools so that they can access their language more. And we can start to teach them by identifying and modeling, even if it's words they don't have, right? So in that moment, when Michelle's mom is rebuilding the tower, she might say, man, it's really frustrating when my tower falls down. I feel sad the roof didn't go on. I need help fixing it, right? And even though Michelle might not be saying that, mom is demonstrating and acknowledging those feelings, saying, I see you, I hear you, and modeling some language that Michelle might not be ready to use right now, but might be ready to use down the line. Yes, and I love this in the chat. Charlene just put in all behavior is communication, every action is a message. It's important to look beyond the behavior and understand the need. That was really well said. So thank you for that. So that's really the goal here, is looking at the environment to understand the need so we can interpret that behavior appropriately.
Charlene, did you want to expand on that, or are you kind of iterating what we said, or are you suggesting that maybe the way we're talking about it is suggesting that we're not looking at it from a need, like a Maslow's hierarchy of need base? I'm curious. I'm curious what you're thinking.
I just take that from basically just raising Marcus, and my son Marcus. Before I even get in there, I just want to thank everyone for showing up. My name is Charlene. I am the founder of We're Autism, and this program is definitely designed for like parents that have kids that are on the spectrum and is struggling with communication. At first, like I didn't know much about autism based on my background that I'm Jamaican, and then growing up in Jamaica, we just did not hear about autism. So, not to stray away from the topic, but like with Marcus, with communication, even though he have limited verbal communication, he communicate in so many different ways. So by you saying that, it just bring me right back to just different ways that Marcus would communicate.
Yeah,
And it's
I
so
love that.
so easy, especially in a colloquial sense. I'm going to share a quick story from Granny was visiting this weekend, right? And my kids are older now, and they probably aren't acting their best all the time. But from her lens, sometimes when my 9-year-old might act up or scream or something, I can tell she wants my attention. I can tell that's what it's about. But Granny says, well, that's just inappropriate and shouldn't be like that, right? And so what I think as a parent is, of course, you're 9 years old, you're a little old to be acting silly to get my attention. And it's funny because my 9-year-old daughter still likes to climb on furniture. And then I started thinking, every time she climbs on furniture, I go, Grace, you can't do that. You should not be doing that. And then even if I'm on the phone, Grace, you can't climb on the counter. I've been telling you not to climb on the counter since you were 2. And it happens, right? But if you think more deeply about why that's happening beyond just a child who's acting inappropriate, maybe a little spoiled or whatever, you learn that I think she just wants a little attention from dad. Now, I'm not going to necessarily teach in that moment. Maybe I will, but it tells me that that's a need for my daughter. And when you look at it that way, again, I still don't want her climbing on the counter, to be very clear. And I still don't want her acting out to get my attention. But it helps me understand the lens of need of, what is my child telling me they need right now? Doesn't mean we can't teach to it, but hey, come get my attention. You're 9. You can just tell me if you want to play or do something. But anyway, sorry to take it too far, but that's just such a relatable thing to say as a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think both of you are really highlighting this. All behavior is communication. And I think as parents, you guys are going to be the experts and the most attuned to the way your child is trying to communicate and what need they might be trying to express, regardless of the form they're using to express it, right? Because you guys are the experts. You guys are the most attuned to your child's wants and needs. So we're going to do a little group activity in the chat, or you can unmute, whatever you want to do, to interpret what is my child saying in this moment. Again, these are hypothetical examples. You may or may not relate to them, but just to get the ideas flowing. So you're going to try and guess what the child might be saying in the below scenarios. So our first scenario, you are at the kitchen table eating a snack. Your child looks towards you, reaches, opening and closing their fist in your direction. So what might they be trying to say in that moment? If you were to put words to that behavior, what might they be trying to say or ask for?
I think the child is saying that they want a snack as well,
Yeah, why do you think that?
because they're opening and closing their fists. What I'm thinking is that the child wants you to put a snack in their hand so that they can eat it.
Perfect. Exactly, right? They don't need to use words. They see you with the snack. They're reaching towards that, indicating that, like, that's what I want too.
Did we just get a new participant?
No, just someone who's brave, Kevin.
Oh, well, I meant did somebody who hadn't spoke before just spoke? That's great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Our next example, while coloring with your child, you see them stop coloring and stare intensely, staring at the blue marker you have. What might they be trying to say in that moment? Yeah, we have a guest in the chat. Awesome. So in the chat, we have they might want to join you and they might want your marker. Perfect. Right. So they're using that indicating responses, showing you with their eyes and their face that, like, you've got the good blue marker and I need that for my picture. Now we have your older son knocks over your daughter's block tower. Your daughter starts to cry and push your son away. What might the daughter be trying to communicate in that moment? Yeah, we have one guess in the chat. Perfect. So we have some guesses in the chat. She's saying she's angry, she's upset, right? She's expressing a feeling towards the brother of like, that did not make me feel good. Frustration, perfect. And probably trying to say, get away from my towers, right? Get out of here, get out of my play space, because they're upset that they knocked over the tower. Perfect. I have a few more for you guys. So you're blow drying your hair and your child who is sitting beside you starts backing away. What might they be trying to communicate in that moment? This may be a tricky one. Yeah, perfect. In the chat, they're scared or the sound is too loud, right? That gets us back to that escape function of behavior, right? Something changed in the environment. There's this loud noise that they don't like. And so they're physically trying to remove themselves from that sound. Now we have you are singing Old MacDonald. You pause briefly to check your phone, and your child takes your cheek and turns your face back towards them. What might they be saying with that, kind of turning your face back towards them? I lost the chat for a moment, but I think we have a guess in there.
He's getting frustrated. Maybe he doesn't want to do the math homework anymore.
Oh, perfect. I think you're one ahead from me, but I love that response. So for what was just responded out loud, that was for number 6. So while doing math homework, your son groans, puts his head down on the desk. I think that's a very great, I'm frustrated. I do not want to do any more math. And for our Old MacDonald example, where the child is turning your face back towards them after you pause singing, we have people saying they want attention and they want you to keep singing, which I think is an awesome interpretation. So it seems like you guys are really grasping this idea of all these behaviors are communicating different wants, different needs. And you can kind of see here, they're across different functions, right? Sometimes it's, I want to get out of this, I want to escape. Sometimes it's, I want your attention, or I want a tangible thing like a snack. So we're getting a lot of different examples of functions in this too, which is awesome. So I'm gonna ask you guys to talk a little bit about the OWR framework, and then we're gonna open it up to questions after that and give Charlene a few moments to wrap things up. But the OWR framework stands for observe, wait, respond. So first, observe. If you're trying to interpret your child's indicating responses, interpret their behavior as communication, the first step is always going to be watch your child. What are they focused on? What's their body language telling me? What's their facial expression telling me, right? Again, you guys are going to be the experts on that because you already know your child so well. The next step is going to be wait. Pause before stepping in. So we want to observe what they're trying to tell us and then give them 5 to 10 seconds to kind of use that moment to communicate in whatever way they may or may not want to in that moment. And then respond. You can acknowledge, model communication, or just join in, get involved based on what you think their behavior is telling you. Now, remember the importance of the environment. When we're responding or acknowledging their feelings or modeling communication, we're going to be doing that based on that detective work we've done. We've watched our child, we've scanned the environment, and we're making an interpretation based on what we think our child may want or need in that moment, based on where they are, what they're doing, and what they might need. What are they telling us? So here's kind of an example. Your child is looking at the bubbles. You wait. Your child reaches. You say, bubbles, and you blow bubbles, right? So in this example, you've observed your child, looking, maybe with an expected look or an excited look on their face. You wait to see if there's a moment of communication. In this case, the child reaches. That's a great indicating response that tells us they're trying to communicate in that moment. And then you model communication and honor it. So you're honoring the fact that they communicated in the best way they could in that moment with that reach and modeling the word for it. Oh, bubbles, blow bubbles, of course, and giving them that. So that's kind of this OWR framework in action of observing the child's behavior, waiting for a communication response, and then honoring, acknowledging, giving them what you think they need. So I have a couple examples. We're right at 6:46, so I'll just go through maybe one of these and then we'll open it up for you guys. So let's look at number 2. All your toy dinosaurs are in a closed box, and your child brings that closed box to you. So the first step is going to be observe. We're observing our child bring us a box. The next step is to wait. In this case, we're waiting for maybe a communication response. Maybe you have a child who uses some sign language or some vocal approximations. You're observing what are they going to do? And then how might you respond? What's that last piece going to be? What might you say or do when your child's brought you that box of dinosaurs? Anyone want to shout it out or drop it in the chat?
Ask them if they want you to open the box for them.
Awesome. So you might say like, oh, open it, or you want me to open it? Perfect. And then what do you do after you model that language?
Open the box and maybe ask them which one's your favorite and they could pick it up.
Yeah, amazing, right? Open the box and then have that moment of connection. Which dinosaur do you want? Which one's your favorite? Maybe you play with them. So that's perfect. We're modeling that communication response, we're modeling the language, and we're engaging with and giving our child what we think they want based on our in the moment detective work. Well, if you want to practice this OWR at home, you can think about it as almost just like setting up a 5-minute play period. So practice during snack or during play, setting up some things that your child might want and seeing if you can observe, wait for a communication response, see if you notice any that you want to write down, maybe bring up in the next meeting, and then respond with a positive response, with engagement with your child, giving them what they want, modeling some language. And I do recommend writing down some different examples as you come back to more and more of these series. It might get the juices flowing for some future conversations. So now I went a little over, but it's about 6:50, so we do have time if anyone has any questions. And you can unmute to ask them or drop them in the chat, whatever's easiest for you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if my child is gets upset and his go-to is to headbutt? Would you say that they are when they're frustrated or something like that, would you say that they are seeking sensory input and respond to that with like squeezes or something like that?
Well, I guess I shouldn't get too specific, but what I would wonder is when headbutting happens, right? What is usually happening right before that? Is it, you're telling your son, no, he can't have something. How old is your son, by the way, if you're comfortable sharing?
He is 6.
6, okay. And does he have language? Like, does he speak pretty well?
He can speak a little bit.
A little bit? Okay. So one of the things that I would look at is what is happening right before that frustration, right? So let's say you get on the phone using that example, and the time he gets most frustrated is when he can't have your attention. I don't know. And if when he gets frustrated, then that's when you get the headbutt. Then the headbutt might be communicating that I want attention. So I'd really pay attention to, well, what was happening right before this happened, before he even got frustrated. What was it that led to this, right? Headbutting, sometimes, now this would be rare, but headbutting is, and I'm hesitant to say yes or no to this, but I would say headbutting is probably more in the lines of some social response, probably, meaning it's probably for some sort of communicative purpose of there's something I want that I wasn't able to get, or you're asking me to do something I don't want to do. And frustration may be that almost like indicating response where you're seeing that, okay, he's showing me he's frustrated. Well, what is it that he's frustrated about? And then you go back in time and think about, well, what was happening right before those signs of frustration? And that's a way to kind of backdoor, okay, well, what was it that, something like a TV show got paused, or was it, I asked him to do something. So that's kind of the way I would think about it. I mean, those are just some pointers. If you have a general scenario, then, maybe we can provide some guidance there. But Serena, I'm happy to let you fill in if there's anything I missed.
No, I think that you kind of nailed it with the headbutting is a communication response, right? It's getting your attention, it's drawing your attention to there's something I want or need. The other element to that is we do see some autistic individuals having greater sensory needs. So while the behavior might start due to
Yeah, that's
you said
yeah.
no, or I can't have this, or I want this and I can't reach it, or my show is not, it's buffering and I can't watch it. It might start because of that. It could also be providing some
Yeah.
sensory input that feels good to that child in the moment. So the complex thing about human behavior, we kind of broke it down for the discussion purposes, but sometimes it can have multiple functions where you said no, so I headbutted to tell you I'm mad that you said no, but also the headbutt kind of gave me some good input that I was looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Give it a second. And if we're done, we're done, and that's okay. And we go on with our night. There we go. Oh, this is a really good one. I love this question. Thank you, Charlene. So this is a big one. This can work.
And before you answer, Charlene, for those of you who maybe aren't able to see the chat easily, Charlene asked, with the holiday season approaching, what are some ways we can help children who struggle with communication feel supported during family gatherings?
Yeah. So I'm going to go down the kind of, I guess, list, but I'm going to go down some examples of some common things I see in a lot of our kiddos. One possibility is that the holidays can be overwhelming for everybody. It's, all the music and stuff kicks in and it creates these warm feelings. But outside of that, the holidays can be really stressful, right? And that can affect anybody who has a gathering. And so we'll go over the possible escape function quick, meaning that the room or the stimulation is too much and it's overwhelming. If there's any way you can create a space that's safe and quiet that they can escape to by using their words, I think that's like a really helpful thing, creating a safe place. And whether that's with a close family member or friends, you may have a conversation ahead of time. Hey, my kiddo gets overwhelmed. Is there a room or an office or something that I can teach him or her where to go, if things get overwhelming, if it's too loud or if it's too stimulating, or if I'm feeling too socially anxious, there's too many people there, even adults. I think there's a reason why some people drink eggnog. I think that's to help the social part of it, right? But, if you can create a safe place for that potential kid who's just having anxiety or social anxiety, and just say, if you need to go in there, I'll go with you. And, we'll, when you go back in to join everybody, if it comes too much, you can just say, I need a minute. And what we typically find with that is kids' first few minutes say, I need a minute. And then they know they have that escape button, and then they can, escape it. And then the holiday party isn't aversive anymore because they don't feel stuck, So that would be number one for escape. That's the most common, one of the most common things I see. The second thing is there's presence and activities everywhere. And I think there's a lot of individuals with autism who may not have the social understanding that some of those really cool toys that are out may be a gift that is specific to somebody. right? And so they may want to go play with that toy. So again, some conversations about how to handle that, some pre-coaching to the other kids. Hey, is it okay if so and so? But for some kids, that's their present and that's their thing, right? So I would have a bunch of, sensory stimuli activities, a lot of preferred activities that you can redirect to. So if you have to say no, say, hey, you can't have that. And that's one of those life learning opportunities, but you can say, well, this isn't available. But remember that bag of stuff we got for you, and if I don't know their language level or anything, but having a bunch of preferred activities available that you can redirect them to might help with some of that kind of positive reinforcement section. And then for sensory needs, you guys will all know, if your kids have sensory need, providing them frequently throughout the day if you can, whether it's big hugs, squeezes. I know my son's a big sensory guy. He likes tickle and roughhouse and stuff like that. So I try to keep him pretty content there. But, kind of every, whatever schedule you think your kid needs, try to stay on top of that sensory diet as well. I think that would be really helpful. But if there's specific scenarios or something that might apply, we can give some advice. But again, it's that same theme of paying attention to what the function is or what the needs are, and then building strategies directly around that. So when you're in the moment, you can be successful. And to the degree they can accept it, a lot of pre-coaching can go a long way. Build your strategy in advance. I know it takes time, but I spend a lot of time consulting to families and just saying, what's the strategy you want to implement ahead of time and tie it around the reasons for behavior, and that might be super helpful. I hope that's helpful. I feel like I just spoke for a while, but I hope it's helpful.
I think it was great.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Um, well, I know we just have a few minutes left, and I want to give Charlene a moment at the end, but I did want to say thank you guys so much for attending and for participating. I know I'm asking a lot of you guys on a Monday night. I did drop our website as well as my contact information up here. Feel free to copy and paste that or screenshot or whatever you want to do if you have questions or want to reach out to us. That's my direct email, and I'm happy to touch base with anyone. Or you can also go to our website to learn more. But thank you guys so much, and I'm going to toss it over to Charlene to wrap us up.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, just want to thank you guys again. Thank you, Sanira and Kevin. I appreciate your time. And also thank you guys for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us here. Keep in mind, this is a 4-week program. So next week we also have virtual health, and the week after we have WIC. And the last week we have Lauren. She's a RBT that's going to give us some tips on navigating the AAC device. So each week is a full week, and it's something different that all tied to communication, which would help us to not only just understand our kids' needs better, but we also be able to communicate to them so they could understand what we're trying to say to them as well. I also want to just mention that we have a WhatsApp Care Circle, and it's for parents that it's a place if they want to just come and vent or ask questions and just to connect with other parents that have kids that are on the spectrum. You guys are more than welcome to join. I will put the link into the chat, or maybe Abe, if you could do it. But we put the link into the chat. You guys are more than welcome to join. My belief is that we as parents should never have to feel as if we have to walk this journey alone. I don't feel as if it was meant for one parent to carry the load. Sometimes I sit back in my downtime and I watch like TikTok videos, and I see parents crying and they're saying they have no support system. And I don't want anyone to feel as if there's no support system, because there is support and there is help, and we're here for you guys. And that is the reason why I created this, and that is the reason why I have like people like Abe that go out there to put together programs like this, just so each parent know that they're supported and they're loved, and there's people that actually care about not just their kids' well-being but their well-being. Because if we as parents are not healthy and strong, are we going to be there for our kids? So we have to take care of ourselves first. So that is the reason why I created this.
Amazing, Charlene. It's an inspiration. And, if there's any other ways we can support you guys, we'd be delighted. And what an amazing organization you started. And I know these parents definitely will benefit from having you. So thanks again for having us.
Thank you. Let's see if I can
Well, I
put
think that
this in the
wraps it up on our end. I want to snag that link just in case there's other parents, if that's okay. You were going to post it to the chat. There we go. I'm going to copy that right now. Thank you so much, everybody. It was nice meeting everybody and presenting to you. Bye.
Thank
you.
you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.